Hello, welcome to our SPS Seminar Series talk. I'd like to welcome Gareth Millington from the University of York Department of Sociology. Good afternoon.
Hi.
So I believe today your talk's going to be on revolutionary citizenship. So can you expand on that basically and give us a little bit of information on what your seminar will be on today?
Yeah, sure. So that's right, I'm going to be talking about primarily an idea, revolutionary citizenship. Now this idea was only sketched by a French sociologist, a guy called Henri Lefebvre, who died in 1991.
Okay.
Now, the idea of revolutionary citizenship is an extension of some of his earlier work that he wrote in the late 1960s around the right to the city, and all of that was tied up within the kind of student movements of 1968 in Paris. So he just sketched this idea of what a kind of revolutionary citizenship would look like, and it's actually been drawing quite a lot of attention recently. Quite a lot of urban scholars are writing about this, thinking about what it might look like. And I guess that's what I'm going to try and do this afternoon. So I'm going to try and put some kind of flesh on the bones of this idea by looking at two concrete examples of urban protest, both from London. The first is the 2011 London riots. Yeah. The second example that I'm going to talk about is a series of demonstrations from 2011 onwards conducted in central London by young Congolese. Okay, and they've got many different kind of things that they're protesting about, but they are choosing central London for the site of their protests.
Oh, okay, that's brilliant. So what triggered your interest within this field?
Okay, well, I mean, that's an interesting question. So I didn't start off, I'm an urban sociologist now, but I didn't start off as an urban sociologist. I started off, I think, primarily as an urban sociologist who was interested in migration. So my doctoral research, my PhD, was looking at the xenophobia or the racism that's directed at asylum seekers. This was in a seaside town about 40 miles from London. And I very sort of quickly realised that you couldn't understand what was happening without looking at the urban context. Okay, so in this particular example that I was studying then in my PhD, migrants only existed in this seaside town because they'd been dispersed from London. So you had to understand the relationship, historical and the contemporary relationship between London and this particular place. And so therefore, as I say, you couldn't understand the xenophobia, the racism, without understanding the urban context. So for that thing was so important. So I quickly, I read more about urban sociology and so on. And I think, over time that has become sort of my real focus, although I've still been interested in, issues of migration, race, and so on.
Oh, okay, brilliant. And so do you feel kind of what's going on within the current political climate in the UK and in the US is helping aid your research?
Well, I think it's very, very interesting what's going on. And I think one of the things that I'd point to as being very interesting is that everybody thinks politics has been completely transformed by the internet and by social media and so on. And in many ways that's true. But alongside that, what we've seen is people again taking to the streets. So last night, for example, as I'm sure you're aware, there were demonstrations, protests in cities across the globe about Trump's migrant ban. So of course, much of that was organised on social media. There's been a kind of a deluge of information, sharing amongst people who want to oppose and resist this ban, but people still felt the need to take to the streets, the big squares, if you like, of their cities to be visible and to protest. So cities remain important as spaces of democracy, spaces of protest, and so on.
Of course. And can you briefly explain, finally, what you mean by the post-political challenge? Okay,
well, the post-political challenge is, again, that's another sort of very interesting thing to grapple with, I guess. I think the post-political, as it's generally been written about, tries to describe the situation where, I'm not sure actually if we are still in it, but we were in it perhaps up until sort of last year, 2016. Was this idea that it was very difficult for any meaningful kind of social transformations to take place. So it was difficult for people to make collective claims, whether that be on the basis of their social class. So, you know, there's been a social class injustice here, whether it be to do with kind of race or ethnicity or religion or gender. So although those voices were heard, okay, and, you know, we have a kind of a liberal democracy where supposedly, you know, these voices are heard, but nothing fundamental would ever change. Okay, so the nature of the economy, of capitalism would never change, the nature of our democracy would never change, even though the voices were heard. So it was very much based upon consensus. That was this idea of the post-political, that we'd reached a kind of stasis, you know, that we just accepted that capitalism and liberal democracy were here to stay. They were the best possible kind of ways of organising our society and our economy that existed. So that's what it kind of describes, this a kind of inertia, if you like, and it's how you respond to it. I think there's different ways that, you know, different scholars have responded to this notion of the post-political. So some people have said, well, you know, every attempt that you see is kind of to try and initiate some kind of change. It's just a kind of conceit on the part of the people who are involved in it. They're almost like flattering themselves that, you know, that anything that could change. And some people have been very kind of, you know, critical towards people who talk about injustices that aren't to do with social class, for instance, as if they are kind of obscuring, you know, the class conflict. They're getting in the way of the class conflict. Others, and I would sort of count myself in this, would say that even within the post-political there are kind of openings for opposition to be made, that there are still possibilities for change. And I think the whole kind of post-political idea really does need to be kind of revisited in light of you know, various things that have happened. Whether or not anything has changed, I mean, a lot of people who say we voted for Trump or voted for Brexit, for example, they think they have initiated change, but then are they going to fundamentally, alter, you know, their own fortunes within the kind of, you know, this capitalist economy? Is that are you just merely handing, you know, the power over to just another group of the same elite, really? I mean, but these things need to be thought about a lot more carefully.
Of course. Brilliant. Thank you very much for your time, Gareth. We thoroughly look forward to your seminar talk later. And yeah, brilliant. So we thank you for listening.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.